All right, we are live this Thursday afternoon. At least it's afternoon for me. It may or may not be afternoon for you, depending on where you're located. But it's afternoon for me, so I'm going to enjoy a little bit of High West whiskey here. This is the American Prairie Bourbon. I had a bottle sent to me of their Rye, which is one of my favorite whiskeys out there right now. This is not as good as that, but this is a great distillery, and this is a pretty good bourbon. So we're going to have a drink here, and we are going to talk some e-commerce as we tend to do on these live streams. Now, as always, this live stream is brought to you by Mage Mojo. If you're looking for Magento hosting, then give Mage Mojo a try. You cannot build a site to overcome improper hosting. Ask Mage Mojo about their automatic horizontal auto scaling. If you want to get into the technical details, I don't care anything. I hate hosting. I hate everything there is about hosting. I'm more of a software guy. I want to build some pretty websites. I want to sell a lot of merchandise. I don't want to deal with hosting, and that's why we have great partners like Mage Mojo. So the link to Mage Mojo should be in the description of this live stream, MageMojo.com. Hopefully I spelled that right. So give them a try. But today we are going to talk a little bit about marketplaces. Now, historically, we've had a lot of people come to us asking about marketplaces. Really, especially the last 5 years or so, since Amazon's taken off, a lot of people come asking about marketplaces. Oftentimes very underfunded for what it takes to build a proper marketplace. But part of that was in the past, it's been expensive. It's been difficult. You had a lot of development costs to go along with, just figuring out how to market the thing. And so, when this topic came up, as always, I go out, I find some experts to talk about it. And if you would, welcome to the stream, Fabian with Omnyfy. Fabian, if you would, give us the introduction and tell us a little bit about what Omnyfy does.
Hey, TJ, how you guys going? So Omnyfy is a platform for marketplaces. It basically enables companies who are looking to create a marketplace to basically create, launch, and manage their entire marketplace in a matter of months. And so we've been sort of set up since 2017 and built our marketplace platform on Magento 2. It's a capable platform that can support everything from product, service, and B2B marketplaces.
And so why did you choose to build your marketplace solution on top of Magento?
Look, I think if you look at the foundations of what a marketplace needs, it needs the ability to have, first of all, a really good e-commerce experience, and then the ability to be able to actually have both vendors and customers trade on the platform. Now, what Magento is fantastic for, and one of the best platforms in the world for, is its capability in terms of supporting very complex e-commerce, right? It's not as simple as here's a product, it's got a couple of variants and options, and you can just buy that, put it in your cart, and check out. Magento gives you an entire framework of capabilities which you can extend, which you can build on, and which you can, really sort of mold to how you want it to work. And when we were picking a platform, when we actually thought about, we're going to build this marketplace platform capability, we looked at everything that a marketplace needs, all of the building blocks of a marketplace. And we looked for a platform, and we didn't want to rebuild anything. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel of a shopping cart. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel of customer sign up or administration or roles and responsibilities and access control and things like that. So we picked Magento because as a platform, it covered the bases better than any other platform at the time. And as we started to actually build on it, we figured out that it gave us not just a platform, but a framework, a really robust framework on how to build and ensure the code was really good, ensure that we had good processes for and coding standards and things like that. So it was just this entire package that it offered us as a ISV, as an independent software vendor, to really accelerate our development and skip the basics and really move on to and focus on what do marketplaces need. That's why we picked Magento.
No, most of the time people come to Magento because of its flexibility and the power of it. You guys chose Magento open source for your solution. If somebody comes to you for a marketplace, do they retain all of that flexibility, or does your software package in any way hinder what you would normally be able to accomplish with Magento?
That's a really good question, and one of the things that I wanted when we went into this this build of Omnyfy was we shouldn't lose anything that Magento has, because it has all of the capability that a store needs, and we wanted to enhance it. So the entire architecture of Omnyfy, which is actually quite different to some of the other modules or extensions. In fact, we don't even look at Omnyfy as a module. It's a core extension of Magento. It doesn't hinder. In fact, it actually is built natively within Magento how the entire marketplace works, both the customer side and the vendor side. So we don't hinder anything. In fact, we don't limit any capability. If anything, we actually build on the capability of Magento. I'll give you a good example of this. One of the, when we looked at Magento again, effectively, you look at a marketplace, and a marketplace is a group of e-commerce stores, right? You're effectively taking what was a single online retailer, and now you're actually adding multiple in a single context or a single ecosystem, and then you're managing it all in one single place. Whether it's a vertical marketplace, horizontal, doesn't matter. It's all the same. So if you think about that, and if you go, well, Magento's got one of the most powerful capabilities when it comes to running an e-commerce store online. And what we've done is we've built an architecture which allows every single vendor on the marketplace to tap into that power, right? And be able to access it at a vendor store level rather than for a single online retailer level. So by following that sort of concept, we haven't restricted anything. We've actually, if anything, built on Magento and extended it and brought in capabilities to the core Magento stack, which it doesn't have on its own. We've leveraged the EAV architecture. I'm not sure how techy the guys are going to be that's watching this, but
hey, if they don't understand, they can ask questions. Yeah, just go as technical as you want to. Usually, we have a fairly technical audience, so most of the people who watch this are Magento developers or at least involved in technical conversations. So feel free to go as deep and as technical as you want, and folks can ask questions if they need clarification.
Okay, super. So we've actually leveraged the EAV architecture of Magento to create things like the ability for you to create vendor attributes, to create location attributes, to create service provider attributes, to be able to create attribute sets. And the power of that, you don't really, you don't sort of recognize that until you're trying to create, different kinds of marketplaces, and every one of them wants different ways for you to be able to find a vendor or a seller, to be able to, find a service provider when you're making a booking and seeing what kind of attributes that service provider has. So again, it's all about leveraging the architecture of the core and really using that to how we want marketplaces to be able to be built. The good thing about that as well is with Omnyfy, we're now focusing purely on the core tech, and we're now partnering with Magento implementation partners globally to be able to actually implement using Omnyfy's tech for their clients in their countries, right? Now, because we've actually stuck to Magento's framework and followed its principles, new developers who are using our tech instantly understand how it's structured and how it works. So they don't have to learn anything. It's actually, here's how Magento works for products and product attributes and product attribute sets. Take that same learning. Now you can apply it to sellers, their locations and warehouses, service providers you want to make bookings for, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, I wanted to mention here as well, as always, this is a live Q&A. So we are live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope. We're not paying too much attention to Periscope. So if you're over there watching on Periscope, join us over on YouTube. You can tweet your questions in, and I will pull those up. But if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. Thoughts? This is a conversation for you guys to engage in. This is not a one-sided deal. That's the reason we do these live rather than recording and me just asking the questions. I always have nice middle-of-the-road questions, and you guys ask the best in-depth, request the best in-depth information. So help me out here. Keep those questions flowing in. All right, so with your modules being built on Magento, you still maintain all that flexibility. Are your modules also open source? Like, as in, if I subscribe to your service, if I, am an Omnyfy customer, do I have access to understand the architecture of those modules and then develop on top of those by adding functionality?
Yes, like as part of our sort of commitment to building on Magento open source, we don't obfuscate any of our code. The code's fully open. And as our clients actually use the platform, they obviously pay us a fee to get access to the platform. We deliver it as a PaaS service, a full platform as a service, rather than here's a module, you go and install it yourself. We actually manage everything for it for the clients. But the clients can then bring in their own development team, have their in-house dev, extend the modules, integrate it however they want. It's completely fine. They have full control over that. We also offer, obviously, push out, we're able to push updates and patches and stuff and so on. So the only thing we inform our clients is, if you are extending or developing build it out in a way where you're not affecting the core. So if we actually need to run a patch or a hotfix or be able to actually upgrade that module, you're not going to run into any issues because you've built your customizations in a way that sort of restricts that. But in terms of the actual extending of the modules, yes, of course, it's open source, yeah.
So follow Magento best practices, basically. Like, there's no need to actually edit a module. Like you've got the capabilities of overwriting it, changing its functionality, and that same scenario applies with your particular marketplace.
That's absolutely right. You want to extend it, just build your own module and leverage off our module to extend it out.
Okay. All right, so let's see. I'm just keeping an eye on the chat here. Doesn't look like we have any questions at this point. So let's kind of talk a little bit about theory here at this point. Why should a merchant be considering building a marketplace at this day and age?
Look, I think if I can sort of just pivot that question a little bit, I don't think it's necessarily why should a merchant consider building a marketplace. I think it's more important to think about how can a marketplace actually transform either an industry or a niche, or how does it actually help an organization change the way they're doing things or enter into a new sector or a new way of selling, right? Because one of the things that we find in marketplaces is it doesn't tend to be the brand that creates a marketplace. The companies that create marketplaces are either distributors, they are either in a space where they're running a channel, but it tends to be a manual or offline kind of a channel. They're in an industry where it's either highly fragmented, there's no real major player, there's a lot of fragmentation on the customer and the supply side, and they're a company in that mix. They've identified an opportunity to bring these suppliers all together. So it tends to be businesses or organizations that look to create marketplaces rather than necessarily a specific brand or a merchant. Now, Why do they need to do this? There are, a number of benefits that come with creating a marketplace. I think one of the biggest ones is about bringing all of the supply side into one single place, without a doubt, especially if you're looking at a vertical marketplace or niche marketplace. We work with a lot of clients where, especially on the startup side, where they've identified opportunities in these fragmented markets to try and own the market, at least to try it. And they do this by actually creating a marketplace that not only tries to bring the suppliers under one roof, because then you just become a listing website, but they try to create a transaction. And ultimately, it's all about bringing these suppliers together and creating a transaction where it's easier for you to engage with these suppliers on the marketplace, as opposed to if you were engaging with each one directly. You're actually providing them the tools to facilitate the transaction and any sort of fulfillment after that. So if you're I'll give you an example for one of the clients. So let's say you're in the printing industry, right? And the printing industry globally is very fragmented. You got hundreds of thousands of small printers in everywhere across the country. And if you wanted to print something, you'd have to go and find your local printer, get a couple of quotes from 3 or 4 different people, figure it out, and then run your print job. Or you could go to like a Vistaprint, that's one of the largest printing companies in the world. They do everything under the sun. Problem is, they may not do it the quality you want, or they may not have the kind of whatever the printing job you want to do. So we're actually working with a client that's actually bringing all of these different printers all under one single roof, and then enabling a customer to go in there, find what they need, but then actually find multiple suppliers that do that same print job on the marketplace. Now, the difference between this and a white pages is, on a white pages, you then pick up the phone and then call these guys. But on this marketplace, you can actually buy your product, customize it, get the designs put onto it, and then actually pay for that. So the transactions are happening on the platform. Now, this concept is about being able to actually consolidate and bring a niche industry together. And if you sort of extrapolate that to other verticals, you've got the same idea of bringing in a fragmented group together and then building the tools which make it easier for customers to then engage with it. That power of a marketplace, you can't really sort of replicate if you were just running your own website. The other benefit that the marketplace brings is, by having all of the different suppliers on one side, you're then able to have what we call, at least, ancillary services. So you may not come to the marketplace for the specific thing the marketplace has, but for something else. But then, because everyone's in the same place, the demand is higher, the number of customers trading on the marketplace is higher. And this is where you hear this term called network effects coming, which is, you have the supply side, you get the demand side. The more the demand of the customers come on, you have increased supply. Now, granted, this is theoretical, and a good marketplace gets the engine rolling and keeps it rolling. And that's the secret sauce. It's about, how do you create the network effect? You have to start with the supply side, especially if it's a niche or it's an industry-based marketplace, and then you'll get the customers. But if it's a marketplace that is a free-to-use marketplace, then you're obviously starting on the customer side, especially if it's a reviews marketplace, for example, and then you get the brands, the manufacturers after that.
Now, you had mentioned, you touched on this with your previous answer a little bit, but I want to make sure we touch on this by itself. Is there, are there particular types of industries or maybe clues that someone should be looking for to identify if an industry is ripe for a marketplace?
Yeah, in fact, we actually have like a cheat sheet for some of our clients to determine whether or not a marketplace is good for them. I think the first thing is, how fragmented is that sector, or how fragmented is that industry, right? The more fragmented it is, on both the customer and the demand side, the better suited it is to actually be brought into a marketplace. The second thing, and this is mainly for the client, is how much power do you wield in that sector? So when I say power, it's like, do you control anything? Do you control the demand side? Do you have enough access to the demand, to the demand or the supply side, for that matter? Because a dominant player in a fragmented market, even if they have a slight advantage over the competitors, is well positioned to establish and actually own the market, right? By creating a vertical marketplace. If you're looking at, if you're an existing company that is in the distribution space, so either you're a channel partner, you're a distributor, or you're a a major player in the whole supply chain, they have a good opportunity to create a marketplace because they've already got the supply side. They've got suppliers whom they're distributing for. So by actually then creating a marketplace, you bring your first distribution group onto that marketplace and allow them to trade with the end customer, but then you can expand that model much faster than you would if you're just sort of running a direct model where you're actually managing them manually and you're actually opening them up directly to the end customer to buy from the distributor or from your product manufacturers and so on. So fragmentation, the power you wield in that sector, whether you're actually in the actual distribution channel itself and you're able to control that, or you're able to actually tap into your supply side quickly. These are sort of the three main ones. Then you start looking into sector-specific things. We're working now, for example, with a major airport in Australia to establish a marketplace for them. Now, why would an airport create a marketplace? Well, again, if you look at these sort of three things, they are in a dominant position. They actually control the supply side. They have pretty much control over that entire, that physical retail space where you've already got multiple vendors. So by creating a marketplace, you're just adding on a new channel. So that channel expansion play is another play for companies that are looking at businesses that they have today and then moving into a marketplace. Another good example of that is in Australia. There's a company called Bunnings. Now Bunnings is like Lowe's in the US. It's a massive home DIY retail chain, right? They were a pure play retailer. They just own these massive warehouses where you can go and buy stuff from. But they recently launched a marketplace augmenting the stock that they carry. They already got everything. They got the suppliers. They got everything they need. All they've done is they've just gone, all right, we're going to create a new marketplace where third-party vendors can sell their products on there, and we don't have to stock it. So you've just now expanded your entire catalog without having to carry any additional stock, without having to actually sacrifice any of your shelf space by adding a marketplace on.
Now, with customers that big, are they taking like the Walmart approach where they've got an e-com channel and then they're adding a marketplace component to that, or are they building a standalone marketplace? And is there any advantage, disadvantage to each of those strategies?
Look, I think if you've got an e-commerce store that's got massive traffic and you've already got the supply side and the demand, you've got customers coming there and it's got a good brand, then creating a marketplace you're better off actually adding a marketplace on the back end of that and using that as a headless front end, right? There's no point going and starting a new marketplace on the site. You want your marketplace to just build off what you've already got as your primary domain and where all the traffic's coming to already. So for those instances, definitely adding a marketplace to your existing e-commerce and just basically having those products either drop shipped or clearly indicated that it's being shipped by another vendor makes more sense. If you don't have that, if you're not an online retailer, but let's say you own a physical space, let's say you're a shopping mall, for example, you don't have an e-commerce website, but you do have that whole supply side where customers can come in and buy from multiple vendors in a single transaction, then you create a new marketplace.
Because that model's interesting. Like that's something I haven't really considered for this conversation, is that you already have an e-commerce presence. And we've had customers in the past that would hook up with, you may hook up with some sort of distributor or something, and when people are searching for something on your site that you don't sell, then you could offer that to them from that distributor and take a cut of it. And so, if you already have kind of this e-commerce presence that's doing pretty well, then allowing other people to sell via that traffic could be a pretty big revenue generating system for you.
It's a step change in revenue because it comes down to the catalog, right? You've had a stock coverage of X, and now you've got a stock coverage of X times whatever the number of vendors you bring on, and you get that without having to carry that stock. And that's one of the big benefits that marketplaces give existing brands with either an e-commerce presence or a distribution channel, is that instant ability to add a whole bunch of new product and new sellers where they don't actually have to carry and manage the stock of that. So the costs are the costs don't change necessarily, but the inventory and the category scope changes instantly. Obviously, there's operation things that you have to consider when you do that kind of thing, right? Because you've got somebody else that's now selling under your brand. So although your customer knows they're not buying from you, it's still within the umbrella of your brand. And you want to make sure that the customer experience is good. And it's not, you have a vendor on there that's going to be, shitty in terms of the way they distribute or they fulfill, or they're missing orders and whatever it is, or the product rubbish. So making sure you verify those vendors, you validate them, that whole process still is important. But then once they're on there, you're not managing anything in terms of the actual inventories and so on. And you're not even touching fulfillment for that matter, because it's drop ship.
Yeah, it's just all profit from there, right? We've actually got a question in the chat here. I'm going to butcher this name. I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and apologize. I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a try here. Serenivasu. If I got that wrong, if I even close, let me know. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry. Serenivasu. That's a tough one for me. I'm sorry. But his question was, does Omnyfy provide lead generation features to onboard new vendors? Now, there's a few ways we could read that question, but I'm assuming he's a developer, looks like a PHP developer, Magento certified. If they want to be a partner and they want to be able to go to market with this and they want to partner with Omnyfy, what kind of lead generation features do you provide?
So I'm going to take this as a question for us as a platform provider. And Silversu, I'm not sure, I can't pick up his name there, but he's asking, if we generate a lead for you, how does that work for us? I'm assuming that's the question.
The exact wording was Omnyfy providing lead generation features to onboard new vendors, ? And I took it as a question around, are you providing leads to help them get sales if they become a partner? That's the way I took it. If that's not the question, then please clarify in the chat. We've got a half an hour. We will make sure we get this answered.
There could be another one, but anyways, I'll tackle both. Okay, so first off, and in terms of partner channels, yes, we do have a partner program where partners can recommend leads. Partners can be a single developer. They can be a major global SI, a digital agency, all of them. If they recommend a lead, we absolutely take that into consideration. There are all sorts of commission structures that we have in our partner program where partners can benefit out of it. But I think the actual question probably related to functionality of the marketplace. Does Omnyfy offer lead generation capabilities for the sellers on a marketplace? Absolutely. We have inquiries capabilities, we have request for quote capabilities. We are able to track that, and we are actually able to monetize that, not just for the vendor, but also the marketplace owner. So when we sort of structure the stakeholders within a marketplace, we always look at the three sides. We got the marketplace owner, you got the vendor, and then you got the customer, right? So these are the three sort of main players. So between the marketplace owner and the vendor, vendors get access to lead generation capabilities on platform. So customers can leave inquiries, and customers can also request for a quote from that vendor on the platform. And these are all ways that sellers on these platforms can actually get leads. Now, the other cool thing we've built is, because we're all about trying to commercialize this for the marketplace owner, we've built in the ability to take subscriptions from vendors. So the marketplace owner can actually set up subscription plans where if a vendor wants to join the marketplace, and if it's not like a free sign up, you can actually pay to be part of the marketplace. And depending upon your tier and your subscription, you get access to different lead packages. Let's say a free account gets access to maybe 3 leads a month. If you're at the top tier, maybe you get unlimited leads per month. So it's not just a way of the vendors getting leads, but it's also a way of the marketplace owner being able to monetize that capability.
All right, we've got questions starting to come in the chat. Keep those questions coming. I'm running low on questions. I've got a few more we can go through, but these are a lot better than any of the stupid questions that I had. So keep those coming. Dimitri in the chat here. This is a couple of questions from new names for me. So Great to have you. Thank you for asking your questions. Thank you for watching. Dimitri's question kind of goes back to something I touched on at the beginning of the stream, and that's a lot of the merchants that we have talked to about marketplaces. And he mentions that at ForaDev, we develop marketplace MVPs for our clients. And usually the generic request looks like, I need a marketplace like this, and I designed a few mock-ups. We get that a lot. Lots of times it's like, just build Amazon for some industry. But after a discovery call, it becomes clear that their marketplace is not researched, no business model, business logic is poor. Is it a normal situation for a startup, or what would you advise for such entrepreneurs? And I'm gonna clarify that a little bit and touch on it. But oftentimes people come wanting to be the Amazon of whatever it is they're trying to do. Oftentimes they don't understand that Amazon spends billions of dollars to be the Amazon of everything. So, what would your advice be? One for a merchant that's maybe looking to do a marketplace that maybe, they don't understand the complexity and the business model. But, on top of that, maybe what is your advice to a developer that is advising them?
So we get a ton of this, right? And my business development manager, Nathan, is the one that actually is the front line on this. So here's the thing. If someone comes to you and says, we want to build a marketplace for something, the first thing is, when we have the conversation in 3 steps, it's like, who are your suppliers, right? What do you do today? And if these 2 things don't actually relate to what marketplace they're trying to build, the chances of success are immediately 0%, right? They have no idea about the industry, and they have they have no context of what a marketplace actually is. And if you go back to my points I made earlier, the 3 points for success is a marketplace right? If you're not in a position of power on the supply side, why would you even bother? So we pretty much knocked us on the head straight away and go, look, we don't try to, I never take the position of telling someone that what they're coming up with is wrong or it's not going to work. I always say to them, look, you probably, we're not right fit for you. You probably need to do a little bit more work and research your business model, and then I send them on their way. What I would advise entrepreneurs is this. The first thing you need to do is you have to have experience in the sector that you want to build a marketplace in, because it's not the generics of a marketplace that are difficult. Sellers, buyers, you bring a place together where they all trade. That's not the hard part. It's the nuances that kill you. We've got some clients. We've actually got a number of startup clients, and it's one of the areas we specialize in. And one of those was in the healthcare space. They're about personal trainers, being able to actually find and engage with personal trainers on a marketplace. This guy is a PT. He's an ex-special forces guy. He's been a personal trainer for 8 years. He understood the problems that PTs have in finding customers. He got it. And he also understood how you could actually create something where customers could find these people. Now, when you talk about that word find, it's so important, because where do you go to find something today? You go to Google. That's your first stop, right? And if you're competing with Google, you need to have a findability capability. That's a terrible word, but you have the ability to create a search where your customers can find and filter down well. So understanding how that works, how the industry works, and what's the nuances is so important that that's probably the first thing I would advise anyone trying to create a marketplace, or for developers who are talking to people who send them an email and said, hey, I want a marketplace. Let's have a chat. You go and you meet them and they come up with this amazing idea. They have a couple of grand. They don't really know how, they don't have access to suppliers. They don't have access to the customers. I mean, right there at that point, they're nowhere near being ready. However, if you're meeting with someone and they say, look, I've got a business in this sector. I've been in this business for the last 8-10 years. This is the change that's happening in this sector. There's consolidation happening. There are people that are going out of business. We're getting hit by Amazon, for example, or we're getting hit by this other major change. And I believe that by creating a marketplace that brings these people together and giving them this simple functionality, the MVP functionality, it's going to transform things. That is a marketplace opportunity which you can then actually spend time talking about. I'll give you another example. I know I've got a lot of examples, but that's because we're actually doing a lot of these kind of things. We're working with a client out of the US, actually, DC. Great person. She's been in the space of government advisory for a long time. So she knows that space really well, and she works with a lot of consultants in that space where companies need to engage with them and get and find someone who can advise them on government policy, which is always exciting in the US. So we're actually working with her to create a marketplace for that, to bring it together and to make it easy for customers to be able to actually find and engage these people. Now, it might sound easy. It might sound like just another service marketplace, but it's not. It's very complicated because of the nuances when it comes to finding these suppliers. So again, the only reason, we started working with her and engaging with her ideas was because she knew the market. She had access to the supply side. She knew what was that MVP capability that one small thing that would completely transform the way people search and find and engage. And that allowed us to actually create an MVP for her, take it to market quickly, launch it, and then actually allow her to have a platform which you can scale. So I hope that gives Dimitri a little bit of a insight into what we deal with when we're talking with entrepreneurs or people that, they may have a good idea, but they don't have the expertise to pull it off.
All right, so we've got quite a few questions coming in the chat. This is a Q&A live stream, so keep them coming, and we will do all we can to get to them. We've got about 23 minutes left on our scheduled stream. We might go just a little bit long if those questions keep coming in. I'll do everything I can to get to all of them. Again, we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, Periscope. The conversation is happening on LinkedIn with this stream. Sometimes it's YouTube, sometimes it's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is popping right now, so everybody head over there if you want to engage in the conversation that is going on right now in the chat. Let me remind you that these live streams are sponsored by Mage Mojo. It costs a lot of damn money to put this on, and so we do appreciate the support of companies like Mage Mojo, not to mention I hate hosting. Hosting sucks. You don't want to deal with hosting. Nobody in their right mind wants to deal with hosting. You want to sell stuff. You're a merchant. If you want to deal with hosting, go into the hosting business. If you don't want to deal with hosting, then call Mage Mojo, MAGEMOJO.com. Tell them TJ sent you over there. Maybe that helps get another sponsorship this year, and we can keep live streaming and answering your questions. In the chat here, Shrinivasu is asking another question here. This is a good question. This is an interesting question, and this is oftentimes a problem with marketplaces. And we've got quite a few questions to get to. We'll get through these here as we can. His question is, do you have an Omnyfy marketplace payment module? If yes, how will you do invoices and vendor payment settlements? Is it possible to generate invoices on the behalf of vendors? Like, payments is a complicated thing when you've got a bunch of merchants somebody can order from multiple merchants at one time. How do you handle that in your platform?
Okay, it's a damn good question. And yes, we absolutely do have we've actually built an entire module called Marketplace Commercials Management, because it's not just about payments in a marketplace, it's about the entire end-to-end management of the commercial. So we start with fees. We start with the calculation of the fees, charges, commissions, and things which the marketplace owner wants to charge every vendor for every sale. We then compute from there each of the actual disbursements you need to make to each of the vendors. We've then built a really low-level integration with any sort of payment gateway you want, really. So in Australia, we support Assembly Pay. Globally, we support Stripe, and that is for pay-in, that's for disbursements and withdrawals management. So with Omnyfy, it is a complete turnkey marketplace. So you don't have to build anything anymore. You drop it in, it does the fee calculations for you, it splits the orders up for you, it lines up the payouts that you have to make for every vendor. It's got event listeners for the order to see order status changes, and it can move orders from between pending payouts to ready to pay out based on these event triggers. And from there, it's just a one click to say, yup, pay these guys out. And that can be done through Assembly Pay, as I was saying, here in Australia. And obviously, globally, we can do that on Stripe. And all of that is obviously then handled, inside Stripe as well, where you can actually, every vendor has their accounts, they can view their payouts and things like that. The other interesting thing on payouts with a marketplace, which again, I'm going to butcher his name as well, Silivasu, has asked about, is KYC and AML processing. This is not something that most, normal online retailers, if you're just running your own website, would face, but know your customer and anti-money laundering checks are a big part of marketplaces, because you're capturing money that you're transferring to multiple different companies or people. So there's a lot of global policy restrictions around that, and these individuals or businesses have to go through checks to make sure they are who they are. So we handle all of that on the platform as well. So when a vendor is signing up onto your marketplace, we actually handle the KYC checks, the AML checks, the bank account stuff. On some of the payment gateways, we do that on platform, but with Stripe, we use Stripe Express, and it handles all of that for you. So privacy-wise, GDPR-wise, you're fully covered with Stripe sort of capabilities there. But yeah, so the actual module is very agnostic of the payment gateway. You can, depending upon whichever country you're from, if there's a payment provider that supports pay-in and multi-seller disbursement capability, we can hook up to that. In fact, we actually had conversations with Adyen as well around this, but in terms of using Adyen, you have to be of a certain size, I guess, as a merchant before they start giving you access to their platform and their KYC capabilities. But Stripe was a lot easier. They were just like straight away going, bang, here you go, here's all the APIs, and we'd be able to get it done.
All right, we are continuing down the list of questions here. I'm just going in order. We've got still got several of them to get to here. We've got about 18 minutes left in the live stream. Matthew Garapi, Matthew, thank you for watching. I appreciate your question. I think his question may be a little bit off topic here. It's a little more general e-commerce, but you know what? We're here for the people. We're going to answer general e-commerce questions if you want us to answer general e-commerce questions. And his question is really more about personalization technologies. And I'm going to get your opinion on it here. How are personalization technologies impacting the customer experience from your perspective? What are your thoughts on personalization in e-commerce?
I love personalization. Look, I think the concept of personalization and predictive personalization specifically is very interesting. It's been there for years now. I mean, my first experience with predictive personalization was back in 2010 with Sitecore. I'm not sure there are any Sitecore fans or Sitecore devs on here, but Sitecore was, a real sort of innovator, I guess, back in, almost a decade ago now, around predictive personalization. The problem with personalization those days was, how do you know what to track, and B, how do you execute on that in a way that isn't clunky, right? Nowadays, with AI and with good personalization engines, it's actually solved in a much better way. The thing that comes under personalization is always comes down to, what are you tracking and what are you doing about it? If you're taking a marketplace, for example, and you come back to my previous point around finding the right vendor or finding the right product that you're trying to buy, being able to get to that point quickly is very important. So anything you can do to help personalize that experience, depending upon the kinds of products I've been looking at or the vendors I've been looking at, you start surfacing content to me, which is, here's some, you looked at professional trainers or PTs for yoga in your area. Here's 5 of them that can do that and who are available in the time slot that you search for. Now, that's like one step towards it. You're actually helping me with my search and recommending things to me. But then let's say I actually went ahead with my yoga booking, then obviously, being able to surface products like, yoga mats and, water bottles and stuff like that, or blog articles relating to yoga is also, it's great for me, because that's an interest of mine. Now, I know I'm going to bring this back to Omnyfy again, but A, I hope I've answered your question. And B, I want to tell you a little bit about how we're sort of approaching this. Predictive personalization is such a big thing, right, that you can't really build it all into one platform. So what we've done is we've brought in some partner modules which can do the basics. That is, observe what a customer is doing on the marketplace, and then segment them based on that. And then using that segmentation, send out dynamic emails, right? Automated transactional dynamic emails that go out based on what segment you get put into. Now, how this operates is, let's say someone's coming onto the marketplace, They found a product that they like, they put it into their cart, they don't check out. Obviously, you can send out the cart abandonment email straight away. But then based on that, you know what segment they've gone into. You can start recommending emails with content, with vendors, with related products or related blog articles, all taken from the actual marketplace itself and put into the actual emails dynamically. So that's like our first, we sort of looked at that as our first step into personalization. It's by no means a personalization engine per se, but it's certainly something that gives at least a first step into being able to customize the communications with the customer, depending upon what they've actually done on your platform. But if you were looking at personalization at a generic conversation around e-commerce, it's a huge topic. And does it work? Absolutely. Do you need investment in it? Yes. More than investment, it's actually the time and effort to do the analysis of the actual behavioral analytics and figure out and test what is the right action based on that behavior. And that's really complicated. It's not easy. You have to do a lot of work, a lot of testing. You need multiple applications to actually achieve that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. I wanted to touch on just a little bit, my opinion before we get to, we've got a couple of questions left in the queue here and about 13 minutes left. But personalization technology has come a long way in the last, 5 years or so. I still feel like it has a long way to go to be accessible to the average merchant. It's still kind of, to do right, it takes a lot of analytics, a lot of just data in general, some artificial intelligence to be really, really good at it. But even with that, there's some basics. There's a lot of good email marketing platforms like Dotmailer that has some stuff built in. So it's come a long way. Still a long way to go to be accessible for everyone.
The other thing, TJ, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
I just want to add another point on there is I think the work that needs to be done on the actual front-end UI layer itself is quite sophisticated when it comes to predictive stuff, identifying those blocks that actually can be changed and what can be swapped out and stuff like that as well. It's all, like, if you think about it, you're starting this thinking from day one when you're building out your site. If you're retrofitting it into an existing website, funny enough, it actually could be a little bit easier because you've got all that identified already. But if you were doing this from this, if you're building something from start and you want to bring it in, you have to think about this during discovery. Otherwise, you're going to be doing a lot of refactoring after that.
Absolutely. Moving, but great question. Even though it wasn't exactly, what we're talking about here with marketplaces, but it is a fantastic question, and I'm glad we were able to touch on it. Srinivas has two more really good questions here. Srinivas has come with his A game today. He has saved this live stream with his fantastic questions. Thank you for watching. Come back next week, man. Great questions. Keep them coming. This one touches on a little bit what we talked about at the start, but we've gained quite a few viewers since the start of the stream. People come, people go. So sometimes we have to touch on the same question a couple of times. No problem. It's fine. Because it is a good question, and I want to make sure it's asked in this context that he painted in here. And the question is, Omnyfy Marketplace module, how flexible is it to customize based on a client request?
Extremely. You can customize everything, right from the theme to the configurations. Like all of our the entire platform has configurations, so you can change the configurations. You can add on modules. We've got modules for service marketplaces. You've got modules for RFQ. You can customize that. You can change the templates and questions that you want to ask as part of a quote request. We've got modules for vendor subscriptions management, which you can modify, you can change, you can extend, you can add new restrictions or inclusions based on those subscriptions. You can change the way the shipping methods work. We just made a new module which automatically calculates the shipping, where every vendor on the platform can actually manage their own shipping and their own shipping rates and their distance rates and so on. They can manage it themselves. If you wanted to extend that out and integrate it with, a carrier like a ShipStation or a ShipWire, you can do that. It's Magento. If you know PHP and you know how Magento works and you can build modules for it, you can enhance it any which way you want.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate kind of what we had talked about earlier, is that it is as flexible as Magento. It is open source. The modules, you have access to override and customize those modules as you see fit. Getting on into Srinivasu's next question here. Omnyfy Marketplace, do you provide features to manage vendor-based promotions, pricing, and order fulfillment options? So what's the customization there around promotions, pricing, and order fulfillment in regards to each individual vendor?
It's native Magento. As we're saying, we chose Magento because it offers that capability for an online store. What we've done is we've created an architecture where every single vendor on the marketplace can leverage that same capability for themselves. So if I'm a merchant and I want to do a promotion, I can use shopping cart pricing rules to create a shopping cart rule with a coupon that just affects my products. So when I go to the shopping cart rule and I try to select a SKU, I can only see my SKUs. And when a customer applies that to the cart, that is going to affect my product. It's the same thing for pricing. You have access to the catalog. You can change your pricing. You can manage your pricing, add a special price, add a tier price. You get access to all of that. So we've basically allowed vendors, we've taken Magento and put a multiple sign next to it, which goes this capability across all the vendors in the marketplace.
But that, like, if you're going to do something across all vendors, like, does the vendor themselves have the ability to manage their promotion? I just want to make sure that's the case. Like, if I'm a vendor on a marketplace built on Omnyfy, I could go in there and pretty much have the entire flexibility of Magento's promotion engine, but only for the stuff I sell.
Exactly.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I clarify. Hopefully, Srinivasu, that answers your question as well. Again, keeping going down the chat here, make sure I didn't miss any questions. If I miss any questions, please let me know, and we will make sure we get that answered. Matthew, on his question about personalization, says great answer. Thanks. A lot more I could get into, perhaps fodder for another drinking session. Surfacing recommendations for e-com at scale with hyper personalization. Hey, Matthew, you want to talk about it? Hit me up. We got some openings for live streams. I'm always up for talking e-commerce over a decent whiskey. So let me know if that's something you're interested in talking about. We could, schedule a little DM session or a private phone call. We could kind of flesh that out a little more. Also says bingo on the last point. That I think that's the last point where they still have a long way to go. All right, guys, we are getting down to about 7 minutes left in the live stream. Srinivasu has one more question here that we are going to answer. If you have any questions, let me know. Most of the conversation is happening over on LinkedIn, so feel free to join that for the last few minutes of this live stream if you need to. Srinivazu's last question here is how to generate new vendor leads as a marketplace owner. So I've started a marketplace. And, this is not Field of Dreams, right? I'm not Kevin Costner. This is not if you build it, they will come. You have to go out there now and you have to sell this vision to people. Do you have any tips, any advice for those that are looking to create a marketplace to then go and add vendors to that marketplace?
Yeah, look, every single marketplace vendor that we have is in that same boat. And the success and the speed at which you can do that is dependent on, again, coming back to those 3 points. If the actual marketplace is well thought through for a segment which is already really really sort of fragmented, and there's a heaps of suppliers in there, and you're in a position where you already have supplier contacts. Once you actually have that on your marketplace and you've started to build the actual network effect between your customers and your buyers, the next step from there is content. You have to create content that then again drives the demand side, because your suppliers are going to come once they see sufficient customers on that platform. So it's funny about most marketplace stuff. You start with the supply side, then you actually hit the customers to try and get them onto the platform. But once you start getting the customers on the platform and you have your whole marketing focused on your customer base, then you're going to your vendors and going, look at the transactions that are happening here. See how many customers I've got. Now, the customers could be coming for content, they could be coming from the suppliers, they could be coming for the transaction. But you've got the data that you're then going back to the market to go, here's where people are buying from, you should be on here. And then it comes down to two key things. The first step, and where do they scale to? And that's where things like subscriptions come in. You give them an entry point that's either a freemium model or a very low cost model where they can get a taste of it. They don't have a massive commitment. They bring in their product, they bring in their services, they start to get the leads. And it's like anything else. Once you start getting a taste and you start to go, all right, well, if you don't want to continue, then you're off the platform and you're not going to get these leads or you're not going to get these sales anymore, then they want to stay and they then scale up from there. So you start with the supply side. You've got to launch with supply. Then you get the demand side. And once you get the demand side, you focus all your attention on the demand side and you drive the traffic, you drive the transaction. Once you get to a critical mass of that, then you've actually got something you can go to market with and show these vendors and go, bang, I've got all the traffic, I've got these suppliers, you should be on here because all your competitors are. And then fear of missing out and actually, fear of not being where your competitors are, especially in a fragmented market, drives your vendors to come on board.
I think that's why it's important, what you mentioned earlier is that you really need to have some sort of power or influence over the market. Like you need to have control of supply or demand because, if you have control over the demand, if you have an audience, you have traffic, it's not that hard to find suppliers because they want sales. They want to leech off of that.
Yeah.
So, you really need to have that influence. We had the first malfunction of the TV behind me. I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen. I've gotten by like 3 or 4 live streams now. This TV, I've got to figure out a better way to show the logo on the TV. Right now, I'm just casting it from my phone, and apparently my phone just decided it wanted to quit, and then the TV kicked over to like a basketball game or something. God knows what that was. But, we just keep going. That's why I keep the remote handy right here. Just flip that sucker off, and we will keep going. It looks like we got through all of the questions. Let me refresh LinkedIn here just to make sure we don't have any questions that are missed, because sometimes LinkedIn gets a little crazy, doesn't show me the message updates. All right, so refreshing that page. It looks like we got through all of those questions. So we've got about 2 minutes left, so I think we're just going to wrap it up here. If you would, are there any parting words? And if somebody wants to get in touch with you to find out more about Omnyfy, how do they get in touch with you?
Just go to www.omnyfy.com. Drop us a line from there. We've got the ability to actually book a meeting as well online. So yeah, book a meeting. We'll have a chat. We'll explore what your needs are, whether it's for you or your clients, and we usually get down to a pretty good solution. So that's just repeating the website again. It's omnyfy.com.
Yeah, OM, it's spelled right there on the screen. You should be good to go. If you have any questions finding it, let me know. Let me know in the comments of this live stream, wherever you may find it, and I will get you hooked up with the right folks. I appreciate everybody's questions. I want to thank you for actually showing up and watching these live streams. This is a different time of day for us, so we're really kind of testing it. Started off pretty slow, but it really picked up steam toward the end. Got a decent viewership there on LinkedIn. We've been releasing a lot of videos on the channel over the last couple of weeks, experimenting with some different content formats, some different types of things for us. Been getting some pretty positive responses on those. So if you happen to be catching this and you're not subscribed or following us, do so. Let me know what you think about those polished videos. I'm working on booking a live stream for next week. I've got an interesting one that's in discussion. I got to wait until it's actually formally booked before I can announce it, but I look forward to seeing you all next week. It'll probably be a little earlier in the day than this one was, but we're just trying some different times to see what works for everybody. So if you're out there watching this live stream right now, let me know about this time of day. Let me know about Thursdays in general, because we can really go live any day we want to go live. We can go live just about any time we want to go live, and we've got an international audience. So I know here, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but for a lot of you, it's late in the evening. If you're in Australia there, it's early in the morning. So let me know your thoughts. We want to make these as widely available to everyone as we possibly can. So I appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.